There's nothing as important as a carp rig. At the end of the day, if you haven't got a rig on, you can't catch any carp. Today, I'm going to talk to a man that knows more about carp rigs than anybody else I know. And that man is Mr. Frank Warwick. And today we're going to talk about a rig that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and that's the shot on the hook rig. Let's see what he has to say.
Nice shoot.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thanks.
Great.
Well, rig time. We're here at Dorford Pools. For those of you who want to know, it's controlled by Ed Matthews if you want to book on exclusive holiday. It's a small little lake with a little island. We're on this island. There's quite a few fish in here, but
It's in Shrewsbury as well, by the way, isn't it?
yeah, it's Shropshire, Staffordshire border, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Sorry, yeah, Shropshire, yeah.
Yeah. So we're here today to talk about a particular rig that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and that's a shot on the hook rig. It's been a long time, hasn't it? It's been.
Yeah, well, we might as well go back to the beginning. We were on the Birch Winter Syndicate together, weren't we? And I remember it like it was yesterday almost, but it was 24 years ago.
Yeah.
When we did a count back, it was 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we've always been into rigs, you and I.
Yeah.
Bait, everything, the full, gamut of sort of coming up with stuff. And I think we considered sort of thinking outside the box type of anglers, aren't we, really? And I'll try to be, yeah. And we were fishing on Birch on the Winter Syndicate. It was a week on, week off. We were on the same rota, and quite often, you'd only just got in the syndicate, hadn't you? And we were pally anyhow. And I remember I'd gone through various bits and pieces to try and unlock the way to catch them on there. A bit of a carry on until I'd actually found out what was working. It was wafters on long shank hooks on a blowback rig. And if I used a pop-up with exactly the same ingredients, same attractors, everything, I couldn't get a take for the life of me on a pop-up. It had to be a fast sinking wafter used as a single. If I fished over bait, I couldn't catch fish. It was very peculiar, and it was orange, pineapple and M-butyric baits that were working at the time. So you got in.
You quickly changed me onto that.
Yeah, I says, listen, mate, let's cut to the chase. I'll show you what I've been doing. And that's how we got sort of talking and coming up with innovations and stuff. And quite often I'd give you a Belford caught one because you lived at Hughes' place, didn't you, round the corner. And it was an excuse for saying, you're not going near the fish and chip shop.
Yeah, it was always, you get the phone call and it was like, are you coming down? And I'll go, yeah, I'll come down. Do you want some chips?
Yeah.
So I'd go into Bass Church and I'd get a bag of chips, and we'd sit there putting the carp fishing world to rights.
And on that particular occasion, we were discussing the finer points of the rigs, and I was saying, I'd always had this idea of if a fish mouthed your bait, it unclipped from the weight and would just slowly lift up as a pop-up in front of it. And often, that movement creates that pounce on it.
Yeah.
And we were discussing that, and it was also, we were talking about, what about if you haven't got wafters that are fast sinkers and you've only got pop-ups with you? And we were trying to come up with a way where you could fish a pop-up very, very close to the bottom.
A low-level pop-up.
Yeah, and we were trying to work out the small details.
But the hook needed to be in a prone position, because you can still fish a pop-up and put a shot on their hair.
Yeah.
And it's still a pop-up.
Yeah.
But we wanted the hook to be in that prone position.
And we wanted it to drop into the floor of the fish's mouth.
Yeah. So it needed some kind of weight.
Yeah.
Or some separation for it to drop in on the ejection, so it was always lower than the bait as it went out.
And we got in my tackle box, we were messing about, and I remember you said, how about if we have the shot on the small loop of braid, and you blobbed it, and we messed around with it, looked at it, and there it was.
And when we dropped it in the edge, didn't we? And even though the idea of you wanted something for the hook to dislodge and pop up, and it was a big loop to start with, but there was no way of getting that out there and casting it.
That's
so
right,
we got it down to a very small one that trapped behind the barb.
Yeah.
And when we dropped it in the edge and saw it went, we both looked at each other and we went,
yeah.
Do you know something? That could be the one. I mean, and it worked, didn't it? But
it did work. I mean, we already had the winning formula as it happened, because we were getting them on the
Yes.
wafters and stuff on the
Yes.
long shanks, which a lot of people just weren't using.
No.
And so we didn't have to switch to that. But when we started fishing other places, we were trying it, weren't we, and getting feedback and that, and it was super effective. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, there's a lot of people, when I've shown it people in the past, they've gone, no, you can't do that. That's not going to work, because I think there was a mental block with the fact that you've got a shot that's sliding on where it should be, you know,
Touching the floor of the fish's mouth.
And because it slides, it moves out the way. It doesn't hinder the hook.
It shifts out the way completely, perfectly.
And we know this now because we've had 24 years of people using it. And especially, you know, that a lot of Dutch guys use this rig quite a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wrote about it at the time, and in Cartwheel, I think it was. And I know you did, and I think it was in one of the Coda books as well.
I think they did it. Yeah, they did a. I don't know if it was like a special one they did.
It was good few years after we'd done
it was a nice mention. They mentioned us both that, you know, developed at Birch.
That's right.
And
yeah,
so.
but I was with PB Europe for a while in the past, and I remember we had a product meeting, and I was sat with Koen Coops and Pete Vogel, I think, was there, Ronnie de Groot, and I said, what about doing basically a moulded kicker? So that was on their list of products to do. They're commonplace now, but they didn't exist at that time. I used to use shrink tube, and I thought it'd be nice if you've not got access to a kettle to do that. And one of the other things I said was, how about shot on the hook, but just putting a loop of braid around the bend of the hook and blobbing a shot in position on it. Anyone could do that, so they did a bespoke one that went on the hook itself. As nice as it is as a product, other companies have done them since. I've got a slight problem with it because it doesn't move out of the way.
We've talked about it previously, haven't we? I'm a believer that the more flexible that shot is, the more benefit it is to the rig. These little ones that Pole Position make, very well made.
Yeah, they are.
Really good. Perfect if you've got barbless hooks, because it'll just slide on.
Yeah, you've
But we'll come on to you know, alternatives in a minute. But I just got this thing in my head that if you cast and it as it enters the water, these ones that have got friction attached to it, it just could move 90 degrees, and that could unbalance the way everything is
skew
set.
it to the side. Yeah.
You know, the underwater video that Corda have done, and Danny's doing all that rig. Like I've said to you before, that there's certain rigs will work at certain times, and I think Danny's had undue criticism by a few of the comments saying it's a load of rubbish, blah blah blah. But
it's all clutter on your rig.
But it's a rig that's worked at that time in that location on that given day or days on that lake. There are certain rigs work at certain lakes at certain different times. You know, you can't catch the same, and every rig doesn't work on every venue.
But if you look at it objectively, most running rigs work the same. If you look at everybody's gear, the terminal gear, the rigs, a lot of it's very, very similar. The fish can use the bait to dislodge the rig. If it's a pop-up, it's moving around the top of the mouth in a volume of water, so the hook isn't dragging on the floor of the mouth the same. It's all about the rig actually getting a grip fast while it's in there before the fish expels it with a mouthful of water. So if you can have that rig doing something unexpected and giving it more time in contact with the flesh, it's obvious that it's going to give you that beneficial extra dimension to the rig. So for all those out there that don't really care about rigs and think that any kind of stuff on the rig like that is clutter, crack on. If you're happy, fine. This is for people that actually want the explanation of our original thinking of why it made the difference. And I think that's an important factor. You know, if you buy into it, great. If you don't, fine. But it definitely does mechanically, physically, a different thing, which is sometimes that small few percent is all you need to make a big difference. And I think that's key to that rig. And probably a lot of people say, well, why haven't you been using it solidly for 24 years? And if I have to think about that, I'd hold my hands up and go, why aren't I still using an anchor rig? I caught hundreds of fish on that at the time. It was super effective. Why don't I use the chod rig all the time, or the short rig as I used to call it? Why don't I do this? It's a good question, but you get in a different vein of angling on different situations, and sometimes you forget things that was uber effective and you don't know why you moved on. It's like having a winning bait. You know, you might have had to say activate or something like that. You're catching tons of fish on it, and then an angler will just switch off it because they want a new smell and a new thing to try, even though that bait was catching tons of fish. So you can't always quantify why you left a winning formula behind. But the fact is, if you've not tried it, try it before you dismiss it. I mean, Danny Fairbrass, when he was using it on that thing, I don't think it's contrived. I don't think, some people said, oh, it was all getting to a point to try and sell something. I actually don't think it was. Because it was a Heath Robinson way that he'd set it up. You know, it isn't quite like what we use, but it was effective, and he caught those fish, and he seemed very convinced with it. And, you know, it's got us all talking, and it's got the interest back, so there is something going for it. And
I think that's just what we're here to talk about, isn't it? To go back to that original one.
yeah,
And you've bought a couple here
that's right.
to show us.
I've got our versions
We've got the version that we use straight from the off.
from the beginning, and we've got a version that you can use if you're on a water where you've got to use barbless hooks.
Yeah.
You know, that could be a problem. With our particular version, you have to adapt it.
Yeah.
And then you've got your versions, haven't you? That
Yeah, on a big Ronnie, big hook, big bait Ronnies, and I've got one for a small little waftus on a small hook. They all work exactly the same, don't they?
Here's a question for you. Have you messed around with the size of the shot?
I mess around with the size of the shot depending on the size of the bait that I'm using. So it is a counterweight.
Yeah.
Whereas some people might think it's just an extra weight for the hook. Say, you know, you could already have a hook bait that's balanced, but it just sits nicely on the deck. But it's a lot lighter than a freebie.
Yeah.
Then you can put a smaller shot on because you're only making that point heavier than what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a few people have mentioned that this weighted on a hook's been done, you know, in the 80s, and we've spoken about it. There's another chap that really got me into carp fishing, Rob Malin.
Yeah.
And he's talked about a rig in, I think it was Basil's Bush, and it was from the season, I think it was 89 to 95, or 85 to 90, whatever it was. And he developed a rig called the weighted drop hook.
Right.
And it was and we'll put a picture up so you'll be able to see what it is. But the hook hung down with some putty on the bend of the hook, and the hair came out backwards at the top,
Right.
with the boilie on the top of that. So he had visions of a weighted hook. So he was thinking on, you know,
Similar lines,
for the weight to go down, and not when it gets ejected, because it's heavier. You've only got to catch that little bit of the point, and you've got them. So that came about. But this, even though it's weight on the hook, but this is the shot on the hook, because obviously we use shot, and it's a flexible one, so it's not affixed in place. So let's go back to that then. Let's have a look at that original one.
Well, this is the original one with the
because we fished that at Birch without the shot. Originally.
Just exactly the same as that, with a shrink tube blowback. Size 6.
With a proper old liner.
Even down to the like Jim Gibbinson style, where you would bring it through the shrink tube to create
which
that
is
right
another
angle.
forgotten.
I always go to the trouble of doing that.
A proper liner is where it comes out the side of the.
And you can see the shots on a small braided loop, so it can't pass, go over the barb.
That's it.
So I'll squeeze the shot onto the loop of braid and then blob it with a lighter, so it can't possibly come off, and that can move all the way round.
That's it.
And you can see there, it instantly grips, and it just drops it into the floor of the mouth of the fish. And, you know, what's not to like about that? It really does not impede that hook hold in any way, shape or form.
No.
You know, it's...
And again, going back to, I think the flexibility of that shot on there is the key.
I think so. Because if you've got it fixed, some of these fixed ones hang down like that. And they're fixed in that position.
Yeah.
And you could argue that that could actually stop the point from gripping a little bit.
Yeah. Or even if you use it on a wafter, I mean, I've got a little wafter rig here. If you've got one of them fixed ones on and the shot doesn't rotate round, on the cast it could just be on the angle and it'll just make that rig not present itself correctly. So I just think that little bit of weight there that's flexible is the key.
And it's so easy to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
To make your own, you know. And I mean, with those other versions that those companies do, they've been uber successful in Holland and Belgium and everywhere. They've used them, you know, for a long time, and a lot of anglers swear by them, so that's fine. But from our findings and our opinion, just doing it yourself and doing this is pretty hard to beat, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. It is. Obviously, if someone can make one that's flexible like that, then obviously it saves you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because it is fiddly.
It is a little bit fiddly,
but the result shows it. So, how have you gone around the Barbless?
The Barbless one.
Because those ones that you slide onto onto the rubber, that they're commercially available.
Yeah.
They don't really slide, so you can use them on Barbless hooks. Really
they're ideal for Barbless. But I just use the little trumpet-shaped stops.
Yeah.
This is on a Ronnie style rig.
Yeah.
If you have it as a pop-up, as soon as they suck it in, it drops over. I've got two stops.
Yeah.
One's just near the bend,
Yeah.
and one's opposite the point of the hook.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get in the way. And as I say,
well, that was just a prime example there. That shot had positioned itself around there.
Yeah.
But because it's flexible, if it goes in the fish's mouth, it just moves.
It shifts out of the way. It doesn't impede the hook hold.
No.
And it helps to drag it all the time.
Yeah.
With a pop-up or a wafter, if this was a wafter, you know, it's just helping it to drag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it gets around the Barbless thing. And interestingly enough, if I'm on a Barbless water, even if I've not got the shot on the hook or anything on there, I use one of those little trumpet-shaped stops, and I move it round to opposite the point of the hook. And what you find is, on the bend, once the hook's gone in, sometimes the Barbless can skid and cut through the flesh on a fish's mouth.
Right.
If you put that little trumpet stop the other way around so that the flat edge, the point's there and the flat piece is here,
Okay.
it goes in, hits the flat edge of that, super glue it in place.
Yeah.
It'll hit that flat edge of the stop and stop it from tearing, and it locks it in position.
Right, okay.
So that's worth thinking about. If you know, perhaps we'll do another little film about that sometime.
It's like, I mean, you know, these little rig talks are really interesting because I know there's a few different rig stories I'd like to ask you about. I mean, like the short rig, for example, how that came about. Because again, when you talked about that back in the early 90s, it was a rig that I took away straight away and caught on it straight away. So you know, it means a lot to me because I still look at the pictures of the fish I caught. And of course, the method came from match fishing side of what's it. But I know you did extremely well fishing the method. Like up at Acton Top Lake, didn't you? You had a massive result on there. If you want us to do any more videos on rigs, please let us know, obviously in the comments. If you want to ask us both any questions, just put them in the comments below.
And we'll make a film about it
and
if
we'll
it's
do,
relevant, of course.
If enough of you want us to talk, Frank to talk about his rig adventures, I'm sure you're more than happy to do it.
And you also come up with some pretty damn good stuff, so we can do it together, can't we?
Yeah,
as a little duo, you know.
Have a play.
And,
but yeah, obviously, like I say, if you're interested, please let us know. If there's any comments, any questions you want to ask us, you can ask us below, or you can go to Frank direct or myself direct on our social media pages.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we'll call that a day.
Call it a day, yeah.
And thank you ever so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you both. We'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Till next time.